I'm going to be demoing the time entry process as well as the PTO request process. So feel free to ask questions as I navigate. Don't be shy. There's quite a few of us on the line, so we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. But having said that, I'm sure we won't run out of time here. This shouldn't take too long. It's a pretty straightforward process. All right. I trust everyone can see my screen. So I'm looking at I'm in production here in Pactera's environment, and I have a PSA test project that I've been working with. And essentially what will happen is someone in the operational team will come in here and create projects, and either PMs or resource managers will create assignments depending on how exactly the workflow occurs for Pactera. But essentially, I'm going to switch screens here, and I'm going to show you the screen that one would experience if they were a user. So here I'm just logged in as an external resource called PSA test user. This process, external or internal, will be the same. It's just the name of my resource that I created in the production environment just for testing purposes. So I'm on the homepage UI here. I've got various links such as PSA links. Those will be important to me as I work through the tool. And then I've got a number of tabs on the top row to help me navigate. So primarily the area I'll spend most of the time are within time cards and time off requests. So let's go ahead and create a time card. So the assumption is I may have worked a week, or may have worked a couple of days in the week. There's a number, you can enter your time as you go. So I'd come to the link called Log a Time Card. Go ahead and click on that link. And let me know if there's any screen sharing problems. Feel free to speak out here. Try to address any issue that you might be having. So on the time card UI here, I have an end date. I've got the week ending date, so in this case it's the current week, so we're November 4th, so the week ending date is November 8th. It has my name here. I'm the logged in resource. Again, I'm this PSA test resource. And then below I have the opportunity or the ability to go ahead and enter multiple time cards. Now this is a resource-centric view, and what I mean by that is that I can be assigned to any number of projects, and then from this one screen I can go ahead and enter my time for those various projects. I don't need to flip to any number of screens just to enter time on various projects. I can enter all my time for all my projects from this view right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. So I can select a project or an assignment. So I go ahead and click inside this box here, and the first thing that pops up are my assignments. Typically these assignments are customer assignments. So there could be use cases where you might have assignments that are for internal projects, but typically assignments tend to designate customer assignments. So here in this case, I only have one assignment. I have one assignment for my project here, the PSA test project. And then below that I have this concept called global projects. And these typically are internal projects. It means that I can have access to those projects without an assignment. Whereas if I look at my above assignment, I can only have access to this particular project if I have an assignment. So by design, typically customer-facing projects, a resource can only have access to those customer-facing projects if they have an assignment. But then we have kind of standard administrative projects, which we designate here as global projects, like bench time, unpaid leave, bereavement, et cetera, et cetera. These will be time that I would enter for those types of projects. And these will always be available to me as they are listed currently. Whereas these type of assignments that get populated on the screen, they will come and go as projects start and complete. So let's go ahead and select on this assignment. So in this case, I'm go ahead and clicking on a customer-facing project. I've worked, let's just say, 40 hours for the week, and then I would come in here and specify how many hours I worked for this project. Maybe the first few days I worked 10 hours, or and then the last couple days maybe 8, and then maybe 6 and 6. So in this case here I have a full week here that I spent on this project. It doesn't have to be this case. Obviously, I could come in here and streamline this and make it just 8 hours a day if that was the case. Notice I have this little dialog box called the Edit Detail. It pops up as I hover over my assignment. It doesn't pop up on any other lines because I haven't selected an assignment yet, but on this particular line I do. So for my example here, I'm just going to go ahead and open this up. And this gives me the ability to enter notes. So on a lot of our projects, probably we'll be required to enter notes. And sometimes there'll be a validation that will force you to go ahead and enter notes. For each of the days, you enter hours. So that way, a lot of times that's a client requirement. And so we just go ahead and just enter some basic values, basic information. Right, and then once that's complete, I go ahead and select Done. I could also summarize my notes here. And then I will go ahead and complete Done. And that's it. So at this point, I could go ahead and save it. And that would be just allowing me to enter my time. Got a little fun error there. So that would just be go ahead and just save my time. Alternately, what I could be doing is I could be entering multiple projects, so I could go ahead and select here and pretend that I have another assignment. And then just enter time again for a different project, assuming that I had a different project. Or maybe just to make the point, let me just go ahead and select, so let's just say I was doing some IT non-billable work for Ike. So I could go ahead and specify that I worked an hour here, an hour there. And then save it and submit it. So that's basically the basic process for time entry. The other couple things to note here is that depending on how many projects I have running, you might find that five lines or time cards is not sufficient. So you may go ahead and add rows. So I could add rows. So if I have more assignments, I could go ahead and enter those times again from the same UI. So I could go ahead and stack more than 5 assignments, or I should say more than 5 time cards. The other thing is if you have a schedule, you can copy your hours from your schedule. So behind a lot of our assignments, there is a schedule. So if I select on this assignment, right, I could copy my hours from that specific schedule. So if I go ahead and select that, it will just go ahead and input those hours that it's specified, or I should say that expects me to work for this current week. So for this current week, it's saying I should just work under 6 hours a day. So I could go ahead and then further modify that. I might say, yeah, I did work 6 hours today, but today, on this day, I worked a little less, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll just helps to facilitate the process of entering time. So that's what copies from selected schedules. Does that make sense? Does anyone have a question about that? Sometimes that can be a little confusing. So behind this assignment, there's a schedule, and there's a certain set of expected hours, essentially a schedule of hours I'm expected to work. And then I can copy those hours from that schedule to help me facilitate my time entry process. Okay, great. If I end up working on a project from week to week and it's the same, then it's the same type of functionality, except from this time, I'm going ahead and copy hours from the previous week. So if I'm always entering 40 hours from week to week, or I have a certain set of hours that I work on these various projects, then I can easily copy those hours from the previous week into this week. And then like we saw in this first example, I can go ahead and then further edit my schedule just in case it didn't quite match up as the previous week. So that more or less wraps up the time card entry process. The last bit that I will mention is that as soon as you hit submit, it will then route the time card. It actually will lock the time card and then route it to the designated PM on the project for his approval. Okay. So that's time card entry. The next piece here that I'm going to talk about is I'm going to go ahead and talk about the time off request process. So again, I'm going to go back to the home page here just to get our bearings. Just before we leave, I went to the log a time card screen, link, I should say, here in the top left corner. Once my time cards are created, I can review them in the time card tab. So I can go ahead and select and review the time cards that I've created, but you don't come here. Well, I guess you could. I could come in here and create new, and then that would get me to the same time card. So I just want to point out that there's two ways to get to the same screen. You can go ahead and click on the tab, or from the home page, you can go ahead and access your time card UI through this link. All right, now I'll officially switch gears to the time off request. And time off requests are for internal projects. And if I create a new one, notice that I can't select my employee. The system will automatically populate my name into this. So generally speaking, only the employee will be entering time, or I should say entering time off requests. I could specify comments if there were any for the approver to review. At this point, I'm just requesting it, and I will mark the day. So for example, I might say I want to take this Friday off. So I would go ahead and mark that I would be taking the complete Friday off. And then I would specify the project. So I could say, let's just say I have some doctor appointments. So then I'm going to be doing some sick leave. And I would go and hit submit. I'm sorry, save. So notice at this point, it's given me a time off request name. I've got an employee, and then it has my comments. And then I can have this sit here for a little while if you'd like. Otherwise, you might choose when you want to submit this time off request. But otherwise, whenever the time comes, I can go ahead and select the Submit for Approval button. And then what that's going to do, it's going to lock this record and then go ahead and submit it to the designated approver listed here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I can submit it for approval. And then I can monitor my time off request. So notice that I have submitted it, but then Greg Costello needs to go ahead and approve it. And to just kind of show you how that process works, I could go then, just switch screens, and I switched logins. Notice I'm not logged in as that resource. I can go to the time off request and then review all my time off requests. And I could easily identify which ones I need to review. In this case, I'm only interested in this one just for our demonstration today. And there we have it. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Apologize. No, it's all the way down here. There it is. And then we've got our request from our resource, this PSA resource, and then if it looks right or looks bad, I can go ahead and select the approve or reject button, and then once it hits approve, right, I will go back to my other screen. So this is obviously not necessarily a role that all of us would play here on the phone here, but certainly we would see the effect of this change. And if I refresh my page, I will then notice that give it a second here, my time off request has been approved. And consequently, it's created an assignment for me so that it lets resource managers and whoever else is managing the schedules that I will be taking off during that period of time designated here. And that is the time off request process. Any questions, folks? That all makes sense?
Sebastian, are you going to cover overtime handling?
Overtime. Can you give me a little more, some more details there on?
I discussed with Shah before. She's suggesting maybe I remember like multiple assignments. There are some of our workers, employees, we have to handle the overtime over 8 hours. They have to be tracked differently because we bill customer differently, and also we pay the employee differently based on overtime.
Yeah, overtime currently, let me see how do I make, let me mute everyone. So currently for overtime, we'll create another assignment with overtime billing rate for the project that will be billed, that will be billed customer with the overtime rate.
But from our user employee perspective, when they log in, they have to like record.
Somebody's typing and we can't hear. Guys, somebody's typing and we can't hear.
So I will mute
Hi, everyone. Well, hold on, Tia.
Okay.
Hold on, Tia. Everyone currently is unmuted, so if you don't have a question or a comment, please mute yourself so that we can hear others who do have questions.
I was also wondering if, because they have like a...
I have a question. This is I thought we were using 10 rocks for PTO.
Karen, I think Karen suggested use 10 rocks using PTO for both 10 rocks and the PSA. And the 10 rocks will be terminated at the end of this year.
Hey, Joanna, are you familiar with the setup with using 10 rocks and PSA for the ITS group?
Hi, Erin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was under the impression that the ITS users would still be using 10 rocks through the end of the year, not PSA. I don't believe we're set up to use PSA for PTO. So continue to use 10 rocks for PTO. Per the email communication from Karen to the ITS DG group.
Okay, and just so everyone knows, that's only for the East Coast employees. So this does not apply to the West Coast.
Laura, could you mute your phone or your PC, please? So,
Okay, are there any other questions?
Well, I don't think my overtime question is answered clearly yet. Right? So, yeah, the project manager, I have to go into the same project, but just basically duplicate assignment. Is that right? And then
duplicate assignment. Also, the billing rate will be like 1.5 times of your current billing rate if you want to charge the overtime charges.
And then my employee, I basically duplicate that for every single one of my employee in that team. And when they come in, they're gonna on the screen, they're going to see the two assignments. Have to fill them separately, right?
Yes. And they will enter their overtime in the overtime assignment.
Okay.
This is Phil. I have a question. So any business development time, training time, travel time that we used to track in the past, that's all work for Ike?
Yes, currently Leighton in your team will create some internal project for your team to track those administrative tasks.
Okay. And an additional question, do the project managers still approve all timesheets for the project?
Yes.
Or is it resource-based?
It's ITS projects are all online now. You can go into the PSA to check to see if there's any project missing. The project managers will approve all the time cards for those assigned employees.
For the project, not by employee, but by project.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a support as Pactera_PSA support at Pactera.com. If you have any questions, please feel free to send email to us. We will try to respond to your request within 24 hours. Oh, I think Dio asked if this training is bearable. I don't think it's bearable to the customer. This is internal training. You can work with your VG operation to see how to log the time against the training. Are there any other questions? Yeah, if there's no further question, we will end the meeting for now. Feel free to let us know if you have any concerns or requests for PSA. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.